The galaxy had long been a place of vast empires, mighty alien species, and complex politics. For most, it was a realm of power and fear. But Earth, with its relatively recent arrival on the interstellar stage, was something different, a wild card. The humans, with their ingenuity, unpredictability, and unshakable will, were a force that no one had anticipated. In the heart of this strange new universe, a secret meeting was taking place in a dimly lit war room aboard the flagship of the Zorath Coalition. The alien leaders of the galactic powers were gathered, discussing the unexpected rise of humanity. There were whispers, rumors, and records of human conquests, but nothing concrete. Humanity had become a thorn in the side of many, and its potential was both feared and coveted. "Are we really going to let them grow any further?" asked Flares, the warlord of the Qatar species. His large, spiny body glinted under the low light as he paced, his voice laced with concern. "They're untested, but they're clearly not like us. They're unpredictable." "I agree," said Lather, the diplomat from the Macunian, tapping his fingers on the armrest of his seat. "They've defeated a Girthan war fleet and managed to hold their own against a Merrick's battalion. The human mind is like a weapon itself." The room fell silent as the council considered Lather's words. The Merrick's, an insectoid species that had once been one of the most fearsome in the galaxy, had never lost a battle before meeting humanity. Yet, the humans had somehow turned the tide, despite being vastly outnumbered. "What do we do?" asked Kramat, leader of the Jorvian ascendancy, his voice almost a growl. "We can't afford to risk having another wild card in the mix. If they get too strong, we could lose everything." At that moment, the massive doors of the chamber slid open with a low hiss. A human stepped inside, his uniform slightly creased but his demeanor confident. He was Commander Thomas Grayson, leader of the Earth's Defense Forces, and his presence was enough to silence the room. The room of alien leaders didn't know how to react. This was the first time a human had been invited to such a meeting, and it was clear that even this powerful species felt the weight of his presence. "Good evening, esteemed leaders," Grayson said, his voice calm yet resonant. "I hope I'm not interrupting. You see, I've been listening to your concerns, and I'd like to offer some clarity." Valeris snorted. "What could you possibly offer?" "Human?" Grayson gave him a wry smile. "Simple. You're worried about humanity's rise, and you're afraid of what might happen if we continue to grow. Right, you're afraid of the unknown." He paused, looking each of them in the eye, one by one. "Here's the thing, humanity doesn't fight to conquer. We fight to survive. The universe may be vast, but we're not afraid of it. We've taken on every challenge, from surviving ice ages to fighting wars on our own planet. And when we face something that threatens us, we adapt. That's what makes us dangerous." Lather raised an eyebrow. "Adapt? And how does that make you a threat?" Grayson smiled again, his eyes flashing with something fierce, something ancient. "Because when we adapt, we win. We find a way, and once we find it, there's no turning back. Every species you see here, every empire you've built, was founded on one simple truth: survival. But you've been surviving in your comfort zones for too long. You've grown complacent. Humanity, though, we thrive on the edge." The room buzzed with a low hum of conversation. Grayson's words struck deep into the hearts of the alien leaders. They had all survived the tests of time and warfare, but the idea that humanity could thrive not just on survival, but on the very challenges the galaxy presented, unsettled them. Kramak's heavy brow furrowed. "And what does that mean for us?" Grayson took his step forward, locking eyes with the Jorvian leader. "It means that while you're all sitting here, debating what to do, we're already out there building alliances, solving problems, and changing the game. You can't either adapt with us, or you can't face the consequences. It's that simple." For the first time in a long while, a sense of unease rippled through the room. The Qatar warlord, the Mac diplomat, the Jorvian ascendancy, all of them realized that humanity wasn't something to be ignored anymore. The humans had come to play, and they played to win. Flaris growled, the words heavy in his throat. "You're a dangerous species, Grayson, but perhaps you're right." Grayson nodded once, his voice steady. "I don't need your respect, Flaris. I just need you to understand. Humanity doesn't lose, not when it counts. The room was silent for a long moment. Grayson turned to leave, his footsteps echoing as he made his way toward the exit. Behind him, the alien leaders exchanged uneasy glances. In the quiet aftermath, Cromack spoke again, his voice quieter this time. A sure thing, then. Grayson's voice floated back to them, cool and confident, a sure thing. And as the doors closed behind him, the galaxy felt a little smaller and a little more uncertain. For everyone else, humanity was a force now, and they would no longer be underestimated. Because when it came down to survival, the humans always bet on themselves and they always came through. After Commander Grayson's visit to the Zorath Coalition's war room, the galaxy was never quite the same. His words echoed throughout the interstellar community, stirring ripples of tension and curiosity. Humanity's rise wasn't just a fluke, it was an undeniable reality. In the months that followed, Earth's influence began to spread. Alliances were formed, and old rivalries shifted. Human ingenuity and resolve began to reshape the galactic landscape, and even the most powerful empires could no longer dismiss them as mere novices. The next major event occurred during the HFY Summit, a high-level diplomatic conference where the galaxy's leading powers gathered to discuss the future of interstellar trade and defense. Earth, having secured its place in the galactic order, was invited to send a representative. This time, Commander Grayson wasn't alone. He was accompanied by Admiral Sarah Sue, a tactical genius known for her unorthodox strategies and keen ability to outthink even the most experienced alien generals. Together, they were a force that left no doubt in anyone's mind. Humanity had arrived, and they had no intention of playing second fiddle. The HFY Summit was held on a massive station, orbiting the gas giant CERN, a neutral ground where downsides of species met every 5 standard years to broker peace and settle disputes. It was a grand event, attended by leaders from every corner of the galaxy. But this year, the atmosphere was different, more charged, more tense. All eyes were on the humans. Admiral Sue, the voice of Prolix, the representative from the Voter Empire, rang through the hall. You speak of human potential and adaptability, but how can you justify your species' place among us? You're still young in the eyes of the stars. What makes you think you can stand with us? Grayson leaned forward slightly, sensing the undercurrent of challenge in Prolix's words. It's simple, he replied, his tone even. We've been where you are. We've fought wars on our homeworld, rebuilt, learned from our mistakes, and adapted. What we've done in a short time, you've done over millennia, but we did it faster. And when we say we're here to stay, we mean it. Speed doesn't always equal success, Prolix retorted. You may be fast, but you lack the wisdom of the ages. Admiral Sue stood up, her sharp eyes meeting Prolix across the room. Wisdom isn't the sole measure of strength. You've been content to rely on your age-old traditions and technologies. Prolix, while you've been busy following your old ways, humanity has innovated. We've developed weapons and technologies you've never dreamed of. But that's not what's dangerous. What's dangerous is our ability to think on our feet, to turn a desperate situation into a victory. It's that human adaptability that you should fear. Prolix's face darkened, but before he could respond, a voice broke through the tension. This is why we need to take them seriously, came the gravelly voice of Lares, the warlord of the Qatar. He had been silent until now, his presence looming over the summit. Grayson and Sue are right. The humans are a force, and if we want peace in this galaxy, we need to understand that they're not here to be dominated. They're here to shape things on their terms. Laffer, the mock diplomat, nodded in agreement. Perhaps it is time we start to negotiate on equal footing, rather than treating them like children with guns. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room, though some of the older representatives remained skeptical. The shift was subtle, but undeniable. The humans had earned the respect they were so quickly gaining. The summit continued, but it was clear that a real shift was happening not in the debates, but in the silent acknowledgement that humanity had taken a permanent place at the table. As the discussions unfolded, new alliances were proposed, some tentative, others more concrete. The humans were at the center of it all. But there was still one looming question on everyone's mind. How would Earth handle the next major test? That task came sooner than anyone expected. Shortly after the summit, reports came in from several distant systems about a growing threat. An ancient race known as the Rak, rumored to be an unstoppable force, had awakened from a centuries-long slumber. Their ships were vast, their weapons destructive, and their intentions unknown. They had already destroyed several uninhabited planets, leaving nothing but shattered debris in their wake. The Rak were a force from a time before most of the current galactic empires had even existed. They were a living weapon, with technology so advanced that even the Zorath coalition, with its vast resources, had no clear way of defeating them. The news spread quickly, and soon, all eyes were on Earth. Would humanity's newfound position in the galaxy be enough to handle this threat, or would they crumble under the pressure? Grayson and Sue were already preparing for the worst. The Earth Defense Forces, bolstered by their recent alliances, were already assembling fleets and coordinating with other species. The humans had faced existential threats before, and though the Rak were unlike anything they had encountered, Grayson was confident. "They're just another problem to solve," Grayson said, as he looked out over the rapidly expanding fleet, "and we always find a way." As humanity prepared for the coming storm, the galaxy watched in anticipation. The Rak would be the ultimate touchstone that would either solidify humanity's place as a top power in the galaxy or crush their momentum. But if there was one thing the galaxy knew now, it was this: betting against humanity was no longer a safe bet. And whatever happened next, humanity would make sure they weren't just a footnote in galactic history. They were here to stay, and this time, they were ready for anything. The Rak fleet loomed on the edge of known space like a dark shadow, an unstoppable wave of death and destruction. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy, systems falling silent, entire colonies obliterated without warning. The few ships that had managed to escape the Rak onslaught spoke of their overwhelming firepower and devastating efficiency. The ancient race was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. They were ruthless, relentless, and seemingly invincible. But Earth, as always, had a plan. Admiral Sue stood before a holographic display, her eyes scanning the incoming data with cold precision. The human fleet was small in comparison to the Raks, but it was more than just numbers that made humanity dangerous. The Earth Defense Forces had one thing the Rak did not: the ability to adapt under pressure, to think in ways their enemies could never anticipate. "We've got one shot at this," Sue said, her voice steady but intense. "The Rak have a centralized command network. If we can't sever their communications, we cripple their ability to coordinate. We'll have an advantage, but it won't last long. We need to act quickly, and we need to be smart." Grayson, standing beside her, nodded. "You're right. We can't afford to fight them head-on. But if we can't divide their fleet, hit them in waves, we can't force them into mistakes, and we'll take advantage of those mistakes, no matter how small." Behind them, the fleet commanders worked furiously, sending out their final battle plans to the human ships stationed in the nearby systems. The plan was audacious: a full-scale assault on the Rak flagship, the Dreadnought Eternal, a ship said to be both a weapon of unimaginable power and a mobile command center for the entire Rak fleet. But to attack the Dreadnought directly would be suicide. Instead, the humans would use their greatest asset, their unpredictability. The Dreadnought would never expect humanity to fight this way. "We'll divide their forces using a series of finds," Sue continued. "We've studied their tactics, every single engagement we could find. Their response times are quick, but they're not built for improvisation. They'll expect us to fight like everyone else in the galaxy, and we're not like anyone else." Grayson's gaze sharpened. The Rak rely on overwhelming force and predictability. They've been dormant for centuries, and now they're operating under the assumption that their tactics are flawless. We'll break that assumption. We'll make them second to guess everything they thought they knew. The human fleet, outnumbered but not outwitted, moved into position. Small, agile warships launched first, darting in and out of the Rak sensor range, drawing fire from their massive vessels before quickly retreating. The Rak, expecting a traditional battle, responded with relentless pursuit, each move playing right into humanity's hands. Meanwhile, Grayson and Sue coordinated a simultaneous strike on the Rex communication relays. Using advanced stealth technology, Earth ships bypassed the Rex formidable defenses and set to work severing the lines of communication that linked the dreadnought to the rest of the fleet. For a brief moment, the Iraq were disoriented. In the chaos, the human fleet struck decisively. Sue's strategy of feints had forced the Iraq into a fragmented formation, and Grayson's quick thinking led to precise, high-impact strikes against critical weak points. The Iraq, unprepared for this kind of attack, began to falter. But the dreadnought was still out there, looming like an immovable object, its guns charged and ready to turn the tide. The final phase of the plan involved the most daring of all, a direct assault on the flagship itself. A small task force of humanity's most experienced pilots, led by Grayson himself, was assigned to infiltrate the Rex defenses and deliver a crippling blow. It was a suicide mission, but it was their only shot at victory. As Grayson led the charge, the comms filled with static and urgency. His fleet was fighting with everything they had, but the Iraq's power was undeniable. His ships dodged incoming fire, weaving through the darkness of space, their movements unpredictable and fast. "Admiral Sue, we're in position," Grayson's voice crackled through the comms. "Get those relays offline and get ready. We're going in." The final assault was a whirlwind. Grayson's task force launched themselves into the heart of the dreadnought's defenses, targeting weak spots that only they, with their knowledge of alien technology and human ingenuity, could exploit. The Iraq's response was swift but ineffective. Their arrogance, their reliance on overwhelming force, proved to be their greatest flaw. In the chaos of battle, Sue's team succeeded in shutting down the dreadnought's central command network. For a moment, the Iraq were blind, their fleet scattered and directionless. Grayson and his team did what no one thought possible. They penetrated the dreadnought's defenses and planted a charge on its core. "This is it, Admiral," Grayson said, his voice steady even as explosions rocked the ship. "We've done it. Get out of there now, Commander," Sue urged, her voice tense. "I'll hold the line here. You've done your part." Grayson's heart raced as he led the surviving pilots back to their ships. Behind him, the dreadnought erupted in a cataclysmic explosion, the shockwave tearing through the wreck fleet like a tidal wave. The flagship's destruction sent a ripple through the entire wreck fleet, and within minutes, their once coordinated attack had fallen apart. The Iraq, cut off from their command center, were now vulnerable. The human fleet, bolstered by the surprise and ingenuity of their tactics, surged forward. It didn't take long before the remaining Iraq forces were either destroyed or forced to retreat into deep space. As the smoke cleared, the full extent of humanity's victory began to sink in. The Iraq, once thought to be unstoppable, had been brought to their knees, and it was humanity's adaptability, their sheer will to survive, that had made it happen. Admiral Sue, standing on the bridge of her flagship, watched as the reports came in. The battle was won, but the cost had been high. Commander Grayson's task force had taken heavy losses, but their sacrifice had secured a victory that would echo across the galaxy. "We did it," Sue whispered, a quiet sense of awe in her voice. Grayson's voice came over the comm, calm and unshaken as always. "Of course we did. We always find a way." The victory over the Iraq was a turning point. News of humanity's unexpected triumph spread like wildfire across the galaxy, and the dynamics of power began to shift. The old empires, still reeling from the Iraq's sudden defeat, now had to contend with a new reality. Earth was not just a participant in the galactic order, it was a player. Admiral Sue and Commander Grayson returned to Earth to a hero's welcome. Though neither of them saw the spotlight, their victory had been hard-won, and they were already planning for the next step. There was no time for celebration. The galaxy was still full of dangers, and now, humanity had become a focal point for both allies and enemies alike. One such enemy was the Kthuri, a warlike species known for their brutal conquests and their no-nonsense approach to intergalactic expansion. Their military might was feared across several star systems, and they had kept to themselves, watching humanity's rise with a mix of curiosity and disdain. In a bold move, the three declared their intentions to test humanity's resolve. They sent an emissary to Earth, a towering figure named Dekar, to issue a challenge, a series of trials that would pit humanity against the might of the three military. If humanity passed these tests, the three would recognize Earth as a legitimate power. But if humanity failed, the three would take Earth's position in the galaxy, establishing dominance over the planet and its resources. The message was clear. The three were determined to crush any idea that humanity might be their equals. For the first time in years, there was genuine fear among the human leadership. Grayson and Sue were summoned by President Eleanor Harris, who met them in a secure underground facility deep within the heart of Earth's capital. The room was dark, illuminated only by the glow of a large holographic map that displayed the three fleets' position in relation to Earth. The tension in the room was palpable. "They want to break us," President Harris said, her voice tight with worry. "But we've seen what happens when people underestimate humanity." "Yes," Grayson replied, his voice unwavering. "But this is different. The three are an entire empire, and they are looking for a reason to crush us. These trials are designed to be impossible." Sue crossed her arms, her gaze steady. "We've faced impossible odds before. We're not going to back down now. If they want a test, we'll give them one they'll never forget." The three emissary arrived on Earth a week later, a massive warship descending onto the planet's surface in a display of overwhelming force. Dekar, a hulking figure with dark blue skin and sharp, angular features, emerged from the ship, flanked by several of his most trusted lieutenants. His presence alone was enough to send a chill down the spines of most human officials. "I bring the challenge of the three empire," Dekar announced, his voice deep and thunderous. "You will undergo a series of trials. Succeed, and we will recognize your place in the galaxy. Fail, and we will take Earth by force. The choice is yours." Grayson and Sue, unshaken, stepped forward. "We accept," Grayson said, his words echoing in the tense silence. The trials were nothing like the humans had expected. The first was a contest of strength, pitting human soldiers against the best of the three warriors in a brutal arena match. The three were known for their physical prowess, and their warriors were terrifying to behold. But humanity's soldiers, hardened by years of combat and adversity, stood their ground. The fight was fierce, but in the end, the human soldier, driven by sheer will and adaptability, emerged victorious. The second trial was a battle of strategy, designed to test humanity's tactical abilities. A simulated war game was held, with the three commanding vast fleets of warships against a human force that was vastly outnumbered. The three had assumed that humanity's fleet would crumble under pressure, but they were wrong. Grayson and Sue's tactics were brilliant, using the environment to their advantage and forcing the three into a series of traps. It was a victory for the humans once again. But the third trial would be the most difficult. Dekar had planned a test of humanity's moral compass, a trial that would push the humans to their very limits. The three had captured a group of civilians from several planets, including humans, and placed them in a virtual simulation. The humans were tasked with deciding who would live and who would die. It was a test of sacrifice and morality. Indeed, Dekar believed that humanity would falter. As the simulation began, Grayson and Sue watched from the command center. The images flickered on the screen, showing the captured civilians in dire situations. Some were being tortured, others were in perilous environments that could not be avoided. The humans were faced with impossible choices no matter what decision they made. Someone would suffer. "This is their game," Sue said, her voice filled with a quiet determination. "They want us to fail morally." Grayson nodded. "They don't understand us. We don't just survive. We care, and that's something they'll never get." The human leaders gathered around the control panel, each of them making the difficult decisions with compassion, often choosing to save as many as possible at the expense of others. They used their resourcefulness and empathy, doing what was right rather than what was easy. When the simulation ended, the three emissary was stunned. "You chose to save them, even at great cost to yourselves." "We didn't hesitate," Grayson replied calmly. "Humanity doesn't abandon its own, no matter the circumstances." The silence that followed was heavy. And for the first time, Descartes seemed to reconsider his judgment. His empire had always believed that survival required ruthlessness, but humanity had shown him that true strength was not just in power, but in heart. After a long pause, Descartes turned to Grayson and Sue. "You have passed the trials. Earth has earned its place." The Victory fleet withdrew, and the galaxy once again found itself reevaluating humanity's role. Earth had not only survived, it had won the respect of an empire that thought it could crush them.